No noise from you, no going inside, you have to be here. It's all right, you have to be there, sitting there, no more moving around. Sitting up, finish and finish. Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pitatvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakhatvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are now resuming our series on the Panchadasi, and this we stopped the last time of the 10th chapter, and the 10th chapter Panchadasi has been written by Sri Vidyaranya Swami. It's around the 13th century, and he was the one who established the Vijayanagara Empire with the help of the Harihara Bukkarayas. This is a history, and afterwards he himself became the Shankaracharya of the Sringeri Pitham, and at that time he wrote this Panchadasi. His brother was in fact his teacher, that's what he claims. So this Panchadasi is involved a 15th chapter. Pancha means 10, Dasi means that means 10. Panchadasi is the one that has 15 chapters, and we covered the last chapter 10. The first 5 chapters covers with Satswarupam, and from the 6th to 10th chapter covers with the Chitswarupam, and from 11th chapter on to the 15th chapter is Ananda Swarupam. So this Panchadasi involves Sat Chit Ananda and the discussion of it. Vidyaranya comes at a time where after Shankara, the post Shankara, there were a lot of criticisms against Advaita, including by the Bhagavan Ramanuja as well as the Madhvacharya, and therefore other philosophers came objecting to or providing objection to Advaita doctrine, and therefore when Vidyaranya comes, he presents the Purva Pakshas, that is the objections raised by the counter philosophies, and then he writes Siddhanta. That means negating those objections are not valid. So this for Panchadasi text has been recommended as one of the important texts as a Manana Grandham, where a reflection on the teaching of what Vedanta says after studying Bhagavad Gita and Shankara Bhashyas and so on. In the 10th chapter is called Nataka Deepa Prakaranam. So from the 6th to 10th all have a Deepa Prakaranam, because Deepa means light, and we discussed the light is that which illumines. So the highest light is the Chaitanya Swarupam, or Chit Swarupam. In that light only we are able to see the whole world, and therefore all knowledge takes place only when one is illumined by the consciousness. Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. And in the Nataka Deepa Prakarana, it starts with the statement that what was there is only Brahman. So Sadeva Saumya Midamagramasid Ekameva Advitiyam. One without a second, it was there only. Then Tadaikshada Bhausyam Praja Eti, that it saw and it wanted to become many. So seeing and all that, from then on we are talking about Ishvara. So how it became many, that's what discussed in the Nataka Deepa Prakarana, where his text becomes a creator, sustainer and annihilator. 3 roles he starts, the Brahman, same Brahman, using Maya Shakti, and one who is one without a second, it appears to be many, starting with formation of Ishvara. Ishvara is the one who knows how to create, and the creative power is there. And the creation power comes from the Maya Shakti. Shakti is a power. So one becoming into many, from the point of science, one becoming into many requires a driving force, because there is a change of state. When there is a change of state, and that occurs spontaneously as though, therefore it requires a driving force. And recognizing that there is a need for driving force, scripture also recognizes that. Therefore it says it's a Maya Shakti. So what is Maya Shakti? It is the force that makes one into many, and that is the Maya. And who has that force? There is a locus for it, and therefore there is an Ishvara, a creator, and in order for him to create, he should have the knowledge of creation, and therefore these are symbolized in Hinduism as a Brahmaji, who is a creator, and Saraswati, the knowledge for creation comes from him. So that is a Shakti, and the creation has to be sustained, and the sustaining power is Vishnu. And in order to maintain, you need a lot of money. So he is married to Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a power that helps to maintain. So these Shaktis are in the form of symbolized in the form of woman here, and Devi is here. And for Laya, it needs a continuous change, because the world itself there is a continuous change in the process. It's not a stagnant, and it's a dynamically it's changing, and any change requires again another force, and the change for force for that is symbolized as Parvati or Shakti. And Shiva is the one who is called Layakara. Laya means changes or a death. Mrityunjaya. He is the one who controls the death. So essentially, the creation, sustenance, and layana, all three are essentially in a cyclic process. And there is the Brahmaji, the Vishnu, and the Shiva are being symbolized as the three locus for the powers for creation, for sustenance, and for the change or annihilation, Laya. And that same Brahman has to appear also as Jiva. So one Brahman only, because it is Ekameva Advitiyam. One Brahman as though created many plurality. So the Lord Ishvara creates, and the process of creation has been discussed in the Upanishad. So is essentially from Atma Akasha Sambhutaha Akashat Vayu Vayo Agnihi Agne Apaha Abja Prithvi Prithivya Voshadayaha Voshadebhyonnam Annat Purusha. So this is Taittiriya Upanishad gives a sequence of creation there. Although it may not be sequence, it is spontaneous or simultaneous as we do in the dream world also. So either way, this scripture has been defined, and the process Akasha, subtler elements, and then the grosser and grosser and grosser. So Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. So Akasha, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So these five senses are related to these five Panchabhutas, and that's how the scripture defines in terms of Panchikaranam, grossification, subtle elements, and all that. A series of processes have been discussed, but that's all within the creation. Even though from the point of Brahman, no creation can be there. Why? Because Brahman means infinite. Infinite cannot undergo creation, but therefore if I say creation, it's only an apparent creation. Just as we go and create in the dream world, a dream world of plurality, the hills and the valleys and the rivers and the sun and the moon and everything we create in the dream. And all are, for a dreamer, those are real. Only when I am awakened to the waking state, it's awakened that says they are not real for the dream world. In the same way, scripture uses the dream world to illustrate the fact that one becoming into many, and that too the many involves both the conscious entity as well as unconscious entity. So when I dream, I am dreaming the hills and the valleys and all that, all the inert objects there, they are not conscious entities. At the same time, there are jivas. I am creating a tiger, I am creating the audience, and everything, also forests and people, everything are being created in my own dream. So both chara achara, movable and immovable things are being created in my own dream. What a power! And same way, the whole creation is also occurring in a different, with all the 14 lokas are created. All that is being accounted in the scriptures. In the Nataka Deepa Prakarana, the creator himself as though enters into the individual body or Sthula Sharira to form a living entity. That Upavesham, that means entering into it as though. Therefore, Brahman cannot enter anywhere because it's infinite. So as though appears to be a jiva is coming alive, and it is the subtle body that has the consciousness getting reflected, and that makes the life. And life essentially starts with Vijnanamaya Kosha, then Anandamaya Kosha, then the Anandamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and the Pranamaya and Annamaya, all koshas, that's going to be discussed here in this chapter now. So life starts pulsating. So Nataka Deepa Prakarana involves that conscious entity still remains, without getting affected, as though the whole drama of life appears to be there on top of it. So it's called Adhyasa. Adhyasa is superimposition on something substratum which is real, but superimposition is only apparent and not real. Just as the dream world is superimposed on top of the waking mind which is sleeping now, lying. So the waking mind pervades the whole dream world, including the dream subjects that are there, and their minds and their bodies also. So one total mind pervades the whole creation there, both the movable one and immovable one, both the life entities, living entities, as well as the inert entities. One mind supported by consciousness is pervading the whole. It's exactly identical, the creation from the totality, even in the waking world. One total mind called Ishvara, and that mind projects as though many things and enters as though into it as a jiva, and enlivening each jiva and making jiva as though alive. So Nataka Deepam is like a Natakam. The light is always there, and the drama is going on in the stage where the actors are coming, the audience are coming, and there is a scenes completely seen, different scenes are going on, actors are enjoying, it may be a tragedy, it may be a comedy, and everything being enjoyed by the audience, but the light is lighting, illumining what's happening on the stage, what's happening in the audience. Everybody is coming in and going in and continuously going on. And when the drama is over, the light will be still there, illumining the absence of people on the stage, absence of the audience in the audience also. So from the Deepam, consciousness, it has nothing to do with what's happening there, whether it's a tragedy or comedy. But if you ask, how come you are illuminating the tragedy, I want only comedies only, say, there's nothing to do with it. Mind, I'm self-shining, and in my presence everything is going on. That is called Sakshi Swarupam. That's what is essentially a Nataka Deepam. In the Deepam, the consciousness illuminating the Natakam, Jagannatakam, at the total level, at the individual level also. And that's what essentially was discussed. And the light doesn't get affected what kind of natakam it is, but it illumines everything. That is because without it we cannot see, but itself has nothing to do with it. So that is what essentially Deepa Prakaranam, pure consciousness, that is what the pointing out is absolute truth. Things come and go. Whether it is a mind, whether there is a not, when there are people there or not, the mind with the waves of thoughts are there or not, it illumines the mind as it is. And the mind is a stage on which the natakam is going on. The subject object duality, a seer scene duality, audience and the actor's duality, all are being dramatized on the stage of mind and being illumined by consciousness. One who is aware of it, that I am the light of consciousness, and the whole drama of life can go on, and that's the glory of me. And with that, if I have, that is the fulfillment and understanding of what Nataka Deepa Prakaranam is. Now we go into the third set of the 5 chapters from 11 to 15, and these are essentially called Ananda Prakaranam. So we had Sat Prakaranam, that is the Tattva Prakaranam, is essentially the nature of existence has been discussed, and in the next 5 chapters the Chit Swarupam has been discussed, that is the consciousness aspect, and now we are talking about Ananda. And we have illustrated using the light example. So light example is what? Light is we are now familiar with the white light is nothing but it has 7 colors, Vibhayar or Vibjayar. So when the white light illumines or falls on some subjects, and it gets reflected. So if it is a red, or if it is a white, or if it is a colorless, or if it is a black, depending upon the reflecting medium, that light illumines. So if it is a red object, why it is red? Because when the white light forms, same white light forms, all other colors except red is absorbed, only red color is seen, and therefore I say that is red. Other one, I say it is blue, because all other colors except blue color is reflected, everything else is absorbed. So depending upon the nature of the reflecting medium, I am seeing different types of colors. So reflected light comes to my retina, and that is transmitted through the nervous system and forms the neurons in the brain, and it is, we said, is converted into software by a program code, because any hardware has to be converted, the plus minus signs have to be converted into software, and Lord has put in the program code for everybody, universal program code, and converts into a software, a thought, and the thought, contents of the thought is nothing but reflected attributes of the object outside. So if it is a chair form is forming in the thought, content is nothing but the chair form and the color of the chair, because eyes can only see colors and forms. If it is a sound, the vritti, the thought that is formed, has the contents of the sound of that, depending upon type of sound. Is it a noise, or is it a female voice, or the male voice, or all other things can be differentiated. All the ragas and everything comes out. All that being differentiated in terms of thought process, picked up through via sense organs and the brain, and converted into software and the thought is illumined by the consciousness, and that's how I come to know. So same Satchidananda is as though falls on different objects, because different objects are only there within Satchidananda only, as though falls on it, and depending upon on what object it falls, object reflects. So if it is a gross objects, only Sat part is reflected. Just as a red object only reflects the red object, not the others are absorbed. Same way, the all inert things only can, but means gross, thulam, that is essentially through grossification, panchikaranam, what that form. So the body, including the world that I see, only can reflect the inert aspect, that is Sat part only. And to reflect the consciousness, the chit part, we need a subtle body, a subtle material is required, and that has a capacity to reflect not only the Sat but also Chit. So Sat, Chit both are reflected by the subtle body, that is the mind. So when it reflects, then it illumines the life of it. In other words, just as the moon, when it reflects the sunlight, it also becomes a luminous body by reflecting process. Same way, mind, by reflecting consciousness, as though forms a conscious entity. And that is essentially, we say, life is pulsating. So that upavishati, entering, is nothing but the mind, along with the reflection of the consciousness, enters into the body to make the body alive or a dynamic. And therefore, it is now we have subtle body inside a gross body, because subtle body has to enter a gross body in order to transact with the gross world. So it needs a gross, because mind cannot transact by itself. I cannot sit here and ask my mind to go and listen to the talks there. I have to physically go. That means gross body is required for transactions. Their gross body sits down and the mind has to learn. The gross body doesn't understand. It's a mind that has to be there. So mind is somewhere else, I will be sitting there only, cannot understand anything. So it is the mind that requires for knowledge to realize, mind is required. But the mind cannot travel by itself, it needs a gross body to transact with. So I cannot sit here and go somewhere else, send mind somewhere else. So in order to do that, mind requires a gross body, so it enters into it and makes the gross body enlivened through consciousness getting reflected, and reflected consciousness dribbles through the gross body. This is going to be discussed in the 11th chapter now. But essentially, Sat Chit is being reflected by the consciousness, and when it go to Ananda is not reflected. Ananda gets reflected only when the subtle body is calm and serene, no agitations, then the Ananda also gets reflected. Even otherwise also Ananda gets reflected, but it is completely shaken out. That means Ananda is shaken out, that means only sorrow will come. So when mind is agitated, the Ananda cannot show. All it shows is the agitated mind only is expressed, which is called suffering. So same Satchidananda, depending upon the nature of the equipment, reflection occurs in the gross objects only. The inert, that is existence, is only expressed in different forms. The form is depending on Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. All five sense objects, the sense properties are inherent in the objects depending on the nature of the object. So if it is a sugar, there is a shape, form, and also taste involved. Rasam is there. If it is a loudspeaker, the form is there, but his noise also comes out of it. So all these things depending upon the Shabda and Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. All are important. So if it's a beautiful flower, it has a beauty, the shape and the colors, as well as if you touch it, it has its own texture to show, and it has a beautiful smell of natural to it. All that is involved in that. And if it is tasty also, you can taste. Some are not poisonous, you can taste. So that depending upon Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, all are there in some of the objects that I experience through the five senses. And that is part of the gross world itself. And depending on the nature of the reflecting medium, the reflection occurs. So we have only pure existence in the inert, existent unconsciousness in the subtle, and existent consciousness and Ananda Swarupa if the subtle body or the mind is calm, serene and peaceful. That happens whenever the desire is fulfilled. In those moments, at least the mind is calm and quiet. And in the deep sleep state, the mind is calm and quiet and folded condition. The Ananda gets reflected. So this chapter talks about types of Ananda. Original only one Ananda, that is pure Satchidananda, but the reflected Ananda depends on reflecting media and nature of the reflecting media. That is going to be the topic of this chapter, Brahmanande Yoganandaha. So by yoking the mind to the higher, one can get Ananda, and also one can recognize the Brahmananda in that process. Now, this is a discussion of Ananda now. Ananda is going to be classified, and Taittiriya Upanishad defines in terms of the different types, the stages of Ananda also. So, Modam, Pramodam and Sukham, Modam, Pramodam. So, the 3 degrees of Ananda has been classified in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And there is a Ananda scale also in the Taittiriya Upanishad, where they discuss about the Manushyanandaha, then Gandharvanandaha, Devanandaha, all the way stages. Each one's Ananda is 100 times more than the fellow underneath, bottom line. So Manushyanandaha, one unit of human Ananda, is one who owns the whole earth and young enough to digest whatever he eats and enjoys everything that is in the universe. His Ananda is only one unit. And the next level is 100 times more, and the next one is 100 times more than the previous one. Like that, each step there is 100 times more, 100 times more, until 26th step. So Ananda, Brahmaji Ananda, his Ananda is 10 to the power of 26 times that of one Manushyananda. And even that Ananda of Brahmaji is limited, because ultimately Brahmananda means the infinite happiness that is beyond any scales, and that is being discussed here, that one can, by yoking the mind, by realizing Aham Brahmasmi, I am going to get to the top of it without going all these scales, because all the scales are relative only. It's only 100 times more than the previous one, but 100 times less than the next higher one. So it is only a scale of Ananda. By yoking the mind to the highest truth, one can get the highest Ananda, that is Brahmananda, and that is being discussed here. One who has realized Aham Brahmasmi, his Ananda is the supreme Ananda. And the first few slokas talks about the nature of that Ananda, of Brahmananda. Then he discusses about the transactional Ananda, how that differs in terms of that, how the same Ananda is only getting reflected by the media and at different scales. And this is what being discussed in this chapter. We'll start with the first sloka. Brahmanandam pravachyami, Brahmanandam pravachyami, jnate tasmin aseshataha, jnate tasmin aseshataha. Aihika mushmikanartha, aihika mushmikanartha, Vratam hitva sukhayate, Vratam hitva sukhayate. Together. Brahmanandam pravachyami, jnate tasmin aseshataha, aihika mushmikanartha, Vratam hitva sukhayate. So, pravachyami, Brahmanandam pravachyami. So I am going to discuss, so the teacher says to the student, I am going to discuss the nature of the absolute reality. Brahmanandam pravachyami. And Tasmin Jnate, having known this Brahmananda, having known this absolute truth or highest truth, Aihika Amushmika Anarthavratam. So the Anarthavratam, the miseries of Aihika in this world and Amushmika, the one in the higher worlds also, both all miseries are the Aseshadaha, without any leftover, without any remaining thing, Hitva having discarded or abolished, or Sukhayate, Sukhayate Brahmanandam Sukhayate. So one gains that, or one enjoys the highest happiness after the all other sufferings are being discarded. Why? Because that is the nature of Brahman, and that Pravachami. I am going to discuss that. So here the teacher promises here to the student that once you have known that, once it is in the Pravachami, I am going to teach you about it, and knowing which, Jnate Tasmin Asesha, having knowing only, it's not going to get something or something, it is through knowledge only. Tasmin Aseshada, without any remnant doubts, also Brahmanandam Aseshada, without any doubt and without any leftover, we're going to enjoy. And Aimushmikam Aihika Mushmikan Arthavratam Hitva the Sukhayate, he is going to enjoy or be happy with that. How it is going to be? What is the nature of Brahman and what is the nature of Brahmananda? So first he is going to glorify the happiness that one gets in the Brahmananda, and that is the highest happiness. All other happiness is chota happiness, and is going to discuss that with reference to this. And therefore you are in search of happiness. Everybody wants to be happy, and you are going for small things, leaving the big one. This we will discuss this in the next talk. We'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.